r/relationship_advice. Dad gave me ultimatum after I caught him choosing sister. Dad gave me ultimatum after I caught him choosing sister. The bank statements were still warm from the printer when Dad walked into the kitchen. I watched his face drain of color as he saw the papers spread across our scratched wooden table, months of transactions highlighted in angry yellow marker. $3,200 for Emma's rent. $1,800 for her car payment. $450 for what looked like a spa day. Sarah, what are you doing going through your what? Your private finances? I held up the statement from March. The same finances that are supposedly too tight to help with my tuition? He set down his coffee mug with shaking hands. I'd never seen my dad look small before, but standing there in his wrinkled work shirt, he looked like a man who'd been caught stealing from the church collection plate. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I stood up, my chair scraping against the linoleum. While I've been working doubles at the diner and stocking shelves at Target until 2 a.m., you've been funding Emma's Instagram lifestyle. Designer coffee, boutique fitness classes, that fancy apartment downtown with the floor-to-ceiling windows she's always posting about. Your sister has needs. I have needs too. The words exploded out of me. I've been sleeping in my car between shifts because I can't afford gas money to drive home some nights. Do you know what it's like to brush your teeth in a McDonald's bathroom before your 6 a.m. shift because you're too exhausted to make it back to your dorm? Dad's jaw tightened. There was the man I knew, the one who'd perfected the art of making me feel guilty for wanting things Emma got without asking. Emma's situation is different. Her anxiety. Her anxiety doesn't cost $3,000 a month, Dad. This says you paid for her spring break trip to Cabo. Cabo. I haven't been on vacation since I was 12. I grabbed the February statement. And this? Westfield graduate housing? I thought she was living with her friend Melissa to save money. She needed her own space for her mental health. What about my mental health? What about the panic attacks I get every time I check my student loan balance? What about the nights I can't sleep because I'm calculating how many years I'll be paying this debt off? He rubbed his temples like I was giving him a headache. Sarah, you've always been the strong one. Independent. You don't need as much help. That's not fair and you know it. Life isn't fair. His voice turned cold, final. Emma requires more support right now. If you can't accept that, if you're going to keep making this into some kind of competition, then maybe you need to find somewhere else to live. The kitchen went dead silent except for the hum of our ancient refrigerator. I stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say he didn't mean it. But he just stood there, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the problem. Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum right now? I'm telling you how things are. This family works a certain way. Emma needs us more, and that's not going to change. You can accept that, or you can leave. I started gathering the bank statements, my hands trembling with rage. Fine. But don't expect me to keep pretending everything's perfect. Grandma's birthday is next month. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, but it felt sharp as broken glass. It means the whole family's going to be there. Including Uncle Mike and Aunt Carol, who always ask how you managed to be such an amazing dad to both your girls. Sarah. I wonder what they'll think about these receipts. I left him standing in the kitchen and went straight to my room, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the family photos lining the hallway. My hands were still shaking as I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me like a slap in the face, $847 in checking, $23,000 in student loan debt, and a credit card that was maxed out from textbooks and groceries. 20 minutes later, Emma's BMW pulled into the driveway. Of course. He'd called her the second I left the room. I watched from my window as she glided up the front steps in her designer athleisure, the kind that costs more than I make in a week. Her anxiety must be doing really well today. I could hear their voices through the thin walls, but couldn't make out words. Then footsteps on the stairs, getting closer. A soft knock on my door. Sarah? Can we talk? I opened the door to find Emma standing there with that perfectly practiced, concerned expression she'd mastered in therapy. Her highlight was flawless, her lashes professionally done. Even her I'm worried about family drama look was Instagram ready. Dad told me you're upset about money stuff. Money stuff? I laughed bitterly. Is that what he called it? She stepped into my room without permission, her eyes scanning my cramped space. I saw her take in my desk covered in financial aid paperwork, the stack of work uniforms in the corner, my backpack held together with duct tape. Look, I know it seems unfair, but you don't understand the whole situation. She sat on my bed like she owned it. My therapist says. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I don't want to hear about your therapist or your anxiety or your special needs. I'm tired of being told I'm strong enough to handle scraps while you get the feast. Her face flushed. I never asked for any of this. Didn't you? When's the last time you said no to Dad's money? When's the last time you got a job or applied for financial aid or did anything to support yourself? You don't know what it's like living with anxiety. And you don't know what it's like living with nothing. I stood up, towering over her. I have anxiety too, Emma. I just don't have the luxury of making it everyone else's problem. She was quiet for a moment, fidgeting with her designer bracelet, another gift from Dad, no doubt. What do you want from me, Sarah? I can't change how Dad feels about money. I want you to stop pretending this is normal. I want you to acknowledge that this is messed up. Okay, fine. It's messed up. But what's done is done. Making a scene at Grandma's birthday isn't going to fix anything. I stared at her. Dad told you about that too? He's worried you're going to embarrass the family. Embarrass the family. I repeated the word slowly. Not hurt me or damage our relationship. Embarrass the family. Emma stood up, smoothing down her leggings. Come on, Sarah. You know how Grandma gets about family drama. And Uncle Mike's going through his divorce, and Carol just lost her job. Everyone's stressed enough without you dropping a bomb in the middle of the party. So I should just keep my mouth shut? Protect everyone's feelings while I drown in debt? I'm just saying, maybe we can figure out another way to handle this. Something more private. I walked to my desk and picked up the stack of bank statements. These are pretty private. Dad made sure of that. Emma's eyes widened as she saw the highlighted numbers. For the first time, her composure cracked slightly. Sarah, please. Let's just talk about this like adults. Adults? I smiled grimly. Adults don't live off their parents' secret checking account, Emma. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? I found something else in Dad's files. I pulled out a folder I'd grabbed from his office while he was making his phone call. Guess what this is? Emma's eyes darted to the manila folder in my hands. Sarah, you can't just go through Dad's private. My college acceptance letters. I opened the folder, revealing documents I'd never seen before. From schools I never even knew I got into. Look at this one, full scholarship to State University. Academic merit scholarship that would have covered everything. Her face went pale. What are you talking about? This is dated 2 years ago, Emma. A full ride that I never heard about because Dad never told me. My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care anymore. And look at the date on this letter, it's asking for confirmation by May 15th. You know what I was doing on May 15th 2 years ago? Working double shifts at the diner because Dad said we needed help with household expenses. Emma reached for the letter, but I pulled it back. There's more. Apparently, I qualified for 3 different merit scholarships that I never even knew existed. Dad intercepted all of it. Why would he do that? But even as she asked, I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. Because if I'd taken a full scholarship 2 hours away, I wouldn't have been here to work and help pay for your lifestyle. I pulled out another document. Look at this, a payment plan Dad set up right around the same time. Monthly transfers to cover your graduate program. Guess how much? The exact amount he would have saved if I'd taken that scholarship and moved out. Emma sank back onto my bed, staring at the papers. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Because you never asked where the money was coming from. You just took it and posted aesthetic photos of your latte art and your workout classes and your perfect little apartment. Sarah, I'm sorry. I really didn't. Sorry doesn't give me back 2 years of my life. I was pacing now, the small room feeling like a cage. Do you know what I could have accomplished with a full ride? I could have focused on my studies instead of falling asleep in lectures because I worked until 3 a.m. I could have done internships instead of stocking shelves. I could have had a normal college experience instead of living like a ghost. Emma was crying now, but her tears just made me angrier. Even her breakdown was prettier than mine, delicate tears that didn't mess up her makeup. And you know what the worst part is? I continued. I actually defended him to my friends. When they asked why I was working so much, why I looked exhausted all the time, I told them Dad was doing his best. That money was tight, but we were managing. I protected his reputation while he was sabotaging my future. What are you going to do? She whispered. I looked at her sitting on my bed in her $100 workout clothes, crying into her manicured hands, and something cold settled in my chest. I'm going to make sure everyone knows who Dad really is. Starting with Grandma's party. Emma's head snapped up. Sarah, please. Think about what you're doing. This will destroy our family. No, Emma. I carefully put the scholarship letters back in the folder. Dad already did that. I'm just making sure everyone else gets to see the damage. The next morning, I woke up to find Emma's BMW gone from the driveway. Dad was in the kitchen, dressed for work like nothing had happened. He didn't look up from his coffee when I walked in. Your sister's staying at a friend's place for a few days, he said, his voice carefully neutral. She thinks you both need some space. I poured myself coffee from the pot, noting he'd only made enough for one. Even the small gestures were calculated now. How convenient. Let me guess, she's staying at the apartment you pay for? Sarah. His tone carried a warning I'd heard my entire life. The voice that meant I was pushing too hard, asking too much, being too difficult. We need to talk about your behavior yesterday. My behavior? I sat down across from him, clutching my mug like armor. You mean finding out you've been lying to me for years? I mean going through my private documents without permission. That's a serious violation of trust. The audacity was breathtaking. Trust? You want to talk about trust? He finally looked at me, and his expression was colder than I'd ever seen it. This wasn't the disappointed father routine or even angry dad. This was something else, calculating, almost businesslike. Here's what's going to happen, he said, setting down his mug with deliberate precision. You're going to return those documents to my office. All of them. And you're going to apologize to your sister for the things she said. And if I don't? Then you can find somewhere else to live. Permanently. He stood up, straightening his tie. I've been patient with your jealousy issues, but I won't tolerate theft and harassment. Jealousy issues? I laughed, but it came out shrill. That's what you're calling this. You've always resented Emma's success. Now you're manufacturing reasons to justify that resentment. He picked up his briefcase, checking his watch. I understand you're struggling with your finances, but that doesn't give you the right to attack your sister or invade my privacy. I stared at him, watching this stranger wearing my father's face. Do you actually believe that? Or is this just the story you're telling yourself to sleep at night? I believe in taking care of family members who need help. Emma has medical expenses, therapy costs, special circumstances that require additional support. You're young and capable. The situation isn't comparable. What medical expenses? Her anxiety medication costs $30 a month with insurance. I looked it up. His jaw tightened. There are things you don't understand about your sister's condition. Then explain them to me. Show me the medical bills. Show me the therapy invoices. Show me anything that justifies $60,000 a year in support. I don't owe you an itemized breakdown of how I spend my money. Your money? I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. You mean the money you're not spending on my education? The scholarship money you stole from me? I didn't steal anything. I made a parental decision about what was best for this family. Best for Emma, you mean? Best for everyone. He moved toward the door, clearly done with the conversation. Emma needed stability during a difficult transition. Having you close by provided additional family support. So you sacrificed my future to make her more comfortable. He paused at the doorway. I gave you a home and opportunities to build character through hard work. Some parents would call that a gift. Some parents would call it abuse. The word hung in the air between us. Dad's face went completely blank, then hardened into something I'd never seen before. You have until Friday to decide, he said quietly. Return the documents and apologize to Emma, or find somewhere else to live. Those are your options. He left without another word, and I heard his car pulling out of the driveway 5 minutes later. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at my reflection in the black coffee, and realized I was completely on my own now. But maybe I always had been. I spent the next 2 days working extra shifts at both jobs, partly for the money but mostly to avoid going home. The house felt like a trap now, every corner held memories that I was seeing with new eyes. The family photos on the mantel where Dad's hand always rested on Emma's shoulder while barely touching me. The refrigerator covered in Emma's academic achievements while my honor roll certificates had quietly disappeared over the years. When I finally came home Thursday night, I found Emma's BMW back in the driveway. She was waiting for me in the living room, looking like she'd been crying for hours. But she wasn't alone, Mom was there too, which was a surprise since she usually worked late on Thursdays. Honey, sit down, Mom said, patting the couch beside her. We need to have a family conversation. I remained standing. About what? Dad's ultimatum? About finding a solution that works for everyone, Emma said quietly. She looked smaller somehow, curled up in Dad's recliner wearing an old college sweatshirt instead of her usual designer clothes. I've been thinking about what you said, and maybe we can work something out. What kind of solution? I crossed my arms, not trusting the sudden change in tone. Mom pulled out a folder, not the one I'd taken from Dad's office, but something else. Your father and I have been talking, and we think we can increase your monthly allowance. Maybe help with some of your school expenses. Monthly allowance? I stared at her. Mom, I don't get an allowance. I haven't gotten an allowance since I was 12. Well, financial support then. We could give you $500 a month to help with tuition. $500. Emma's apartment alone cost 3 times that, not counting her meal plan, shopping budget, and graduate school fees. You're not serious, I said. Emma leaned forward. Sarah, I've also been thinking, maybe I could get a part-time job. Start contributing more to my own expenses. What kind of job? The question came out harsher than I intended, but I was genuinely curious. Emma had never worked a day in her life. I don't know yet. Maybe tutoring? Or something at the university? I looked between them, Mom with her hopeful smile, Emma with her red-rimmed eyes, and felt something crack inside me. They really thought this was enough. They actually believed that throwing me scraps while maintaining the same fundamental inequality would make me grateful. Where's Dad? I asked. He's working late, Mom said quickly. But he knows about our conversation. He's willing to consider some adjustments if you can return his documents and apologize to Emma. Apologize for what, exactly? Emma flinched. For the things you said about me not deserving help. About me being spoiled and taking advantage. But you were taking advantage. Whether you knew it or not. I know that now, she said, tears starting again. And I feel terrible about it. But Sarah, I can't undo the past 2 years. I can only try to do better going forward. Mom reached for my hand. Honey, your sister has been making herself sick over this. She's barely eaten since Tuesday. And your father, he's heartbroken that you think so little of him. He's heartbroken? I pulled my hand away. He gave me an ultimatum, Mom. He threatened to kick me out for discovering the truth. He was hurt and angry. People say things they don't mean when they're emotional. I stared at her, recognizing the same pattern I'd seen my whole life. Dad hurt me, Mom minimized it, Emma got comfort, and I was expected to be the mature one who smoothed everything over. What about the scholarships? I asked quietly. The room went dead silent. Mom and Emma exchanged a look that told me everything. You both knew, I whispered. Sarah, Mom started. You all knew. You all knew, I repeated, louder this time. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Mom's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We were going to tell you. When? My voice echoed off the walls. When exactly were you planning to tell me that you stole my future? Emma pulled her knees up to her chest. Sarah, please. I didn't know about the scholarships at first. I thought Dad was just helping because of my anxiety. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop lying to me. When did you find out? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, last spring. When I was filling out financial aid forms for this year. Last spring. I felt dizzy. You've known for 8 months. I wanted to tell you, she said quickly. But Dad said it would just hurt you, and the money was already spent, so what was the point of causing drama? What was the point? I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to me. The point was that I'd been destroying my body working 60-hour weeks. The point was that I'd been living in my car some nights because I couldn't afford gas to get home between shifts. The point was that I thought my family couldn't help me when you were all just choosing not to. Mom stood up, reaching toward me. Honey, we never wanted you to struggle like that. If we'd known how bad things were. You did know. I backed away from her outstretched hand. I told you I was exhausted. I told you I was broke. I asked for help dozens of times, and you always said the same thing, we're doing everything we can, but money's tight with Emma's school. We were doing everything we could, Mom insisted. Your father works incredibly hard to support this family. To support Emma, I corrected. He works hard to support Emma. I'm just the kid who happens to live here. Emma's crying had gotten louder, and the sound was grating against my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. Sarah, I never asked for this. I never wanted you to get hurt. But you took it anyway. I looked at her directly for the first time since coming home. You took it all anyway, even after you knew. What was I supposed to do? Drop out of graduate school? Give up my apartment? Yes. The word burst out of me with such force that both of them flinched. Yes, that's exactly what you should have done. Or at least you should have told me the truth so I could make my own decisions. Mom stepped between us. That's enough. Emma's mental health is fragile, and making drastic changes could have triggered a serious episode. What about my mental health? I stared at her. What about the panic attacks I've been having about my student loans? What about the nights I've cried myself to sleep wondering if I'll ever be able to afford to finish school? That's different, Mom said automatically, then seemed to realize how that sounded. Different how? She opened and closed her mouth several times before Emma answered for her. Because you're stronger than me. You've always been the tough one. I'm not stronger, I said quietly. I just never had a choice. My phone buzzed with a text message. Then another. I pulled it out and saw messages from my cousin Rachel. *K. Did you know Emma's Instagram story shows her at that new expensive restaurant downtown? Thought you said your family was broke? *. I looked up to find Emma staring at her own phone, her face pale. Sarah, I can explain. You posted about dinner on Instagram? I scrolled through her story. Pictures of cocktails, artisanal appetizers, a bill that probably cost more than I made in a week. Tonight? While you were supposedly making yourself sick with guilt? I wasn't thinking. No, I said, screenshotting everything. You really weren't. I held up my phone, showing them the screenshots. $60 cocktails. $100 dinner. Posted 2 hours ago with a caption, treating myself after a rough week. Emma's face went white. Sarah, A rough week? I scrolled through more of her posts. Here's yesterday, shopping haul from Nordstrom. Tuesday, getting a massage because you were so stressed. Monday, brunch with friends at that place that charges $30 for eggs. Mom sank back onto the couch. Emma, you said you were too upset to eat. I was upset, Emma protested. But Jessica invited me out, and I thought it might help me feel better. With Dad's money. I kept scrolling, finding more evidence. Manicure yesterday. Hair appointment this morning. New designer purse on Sunday. I looked up at her. This whole week, while you've been crying about how terrible you feel, you've been spending more money than I make in a month. It's not what it looks like, Emma said desperately. Most of those things were already scheduled before our fight. The restaurant receipt is literally timestamped 2 hours ago, Emma. While you were sitting here telling me how guilty you felt. Mom looked between us, her face crumbling as she realized the implications. Honey, why didn't you mention going out for dinner? Because I knew how it would look. Emma's voice cracked. I knew Sarah would use it against me. I'm not allowed to do anything without being judged for it. You're being judged for lying, I said. Again. Just like you lied about not knowing about the scholarships. Just like you're lying about wanting to get a job. I do want to get a job. When? Between your spa appointments and shopping trips? I held up my phone again. You have plans posted for the next 2 weeks. Wine tasting on Saturday. Concert on Tuesday. Weekend getaway with friends next Friday. When exactly are you planning to fit in this imaginary job? Emma looked caught, glancing at Mom for help. Those plans were made before. Before what? Before you got caught? Because nothing's actually changed for you, has it? You're still getting Dad's money. You're still living in your expensive apartment. You're still going to graduate school debt-free while I'm drowning. Mom cleared her throat. Maybe Emma could postpone some of those activities. Maybe Emma could cancel them, I corrected. Maybe Emma could take the money she was going to spend on wine tasting and offer it to me instead. Show some actual good faith. That's not fair, Emma said. You want me to become a hermit to prove I'm sorry? I want you to make an actual sacrifice. My voice bounced off the walls. I want you to give up something that matters to you, the way I've been giving up everything that matters to me. You don't understand, those friends, those activities, they're part of my support system. My therapist says social connections are crucial for my mental health. Your therapist that Dad pays for, I pointed out. Emma's mouth snapped shut. Let me guess, I continued. Twice a week at $200 a session? Dr. Martinez on 5th Street? The same therapist who supposedly said you couldn't handle any stress, so Dad needed to shield you from consequences? The look on Emma's face confirmed I was right. How do you know about Dr. Martinez? Mom asked quietly. Because Dad's bank statements are very detailed. I smiled without humor. Emma's therapy costs more per month than my rent. Her anxiety medication, the premium brand, not generic, costs more than my groceries. Emma was crying again, but this time it felt different. Performative. I can't help having anxiety, she sobbed. I didn't choose to have panic attacks. But you chose to keep taking the money after you knew where it was coming from. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's sobs echoed in the living room, but for the first time, they didn't make me feel guilty. They made me angry. You know what the worst part is? I said, my voice deadly calm. It's not even the money. It's that you both think I'm stupid. Mom frowned. Sarah, we never. You think I haven't noticed that Emma's anxiety only flares up when it's convenient. When she needs an extension on a paper, or when someone suggests she get a job, or when Dad needs an excuse to give her more money. I looked directly at Emma. But somehow your anxiety never stops you from going to parties, or traveling, or posting on social media constantly. That's not how anxiety works, Emma protested. Some things are triggers, and some things are coping mechanisms. Bullshit. The word came out sharp and clear. I've watched you, Emma. For years. Your anxiety disappears the moment you get what you want. You don't understand mental health, she shot back, her tears stopping as quickly as they'd started. You've always been judgmental about my condition. Your condition? I laughed harshly. Is that what we're calling it? Your condition of being Dad's favorite? Mom stood up again. Sarah, that's cruel. Emma's struggles are real. Then why doesn't she struggle with the same things I do? I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through Emma's social media with practiced efficiency. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, Emma posted about having a panic attack and needing to skip her graduate seminar. But that same night, she posted Instagram stories from a club downtown until 2 a.m. I turned the phone toward them. Here she is, supposedly too anxious to attend class, doing shots and dancing on tables. Emma's face flushed red. Social situations are different. Or this one, I continued, finding another post. Last month, she told Dad she was too overwhelmed to look for part-time work. Too much stress, right? But the next day, she drove 4 hours to attend a music festival. Posted about it for 3 days straight. Those are completely different scenarios, Emma said, but her voice was getting higher, more defensive. Are they? I kept scrolling. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your anxiety only exists when someone expects you to be responsible. Mom sank back down, looking between my phone screen and Emma's face. I could see the wheels turning in her head, probably remembering other instances that suddenly looked different in this context. I can't believe you're using my social media against me, Emma said, her voice shaking with rage now instead of tears. You're literally stalking me to find ways to hurt me. I'm documenting the lies you tell our parents. I screenshot another post. Here's you last week, supposedly too depressed to help Dad with yard work, at a wine tasting with friends. Spending money on a $100 bottle while I'm working a double shift at the diner. Emma's composure cracked completely. You want to know the truth? Fine. Maybe I do exaggerate sometimes. Maybe I play up the anxiety because it's the only way to get Dad's attention. But at least he pays attention to me at all. The admission hung in the air like smoke. Mom's mouth dropped open. At least when I'm struggling, he cares, Emma continued, her voice getting louder and more vicious. When you struggle, Sarah, nobody notices because that's just who you are. The responsible one. The strong one. The one who doesn't need help. She was breathing hard, her eyes bright with malicious satisfaction. You want to know why Dad chose me? Because I matter enough to save. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, the room went completely silent except for the sound of Emma's ragged breathing and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. There it is, I said quietly. Finally. The truth. Mom looked like she'd been slapped. Emma, you can't mean that. She means it. I stood up, feeling strangely calm despite the rage building in my chest. She's always meant it. This whole performance tonight? The tears, the guilt, the promises to change? It was all just another manipulation. Emma's face was flushed with a mixture of triumph and panic, like she couldn't decide whether she was glad she'd finally said it or terrified of the consequences. You think Dad chose you because you matter more? I pulled out my phone again. Let me show you exactly how much you matter to him. Sarah, don't, Mom warned, but I was already scrolling to the folder I'd hoped I wouldn't have to use. This is from Dad's phone, I said, finding the text thread I'd photographed. Him talking to his brother Mike about us. I cleared my throat and began reading. Mike asks how his daughters are doing, and Dad says, Sarah's fine, she always lands on her feet. It's Emma I worry about. That girl couldn't survive a week in the real world without help. Emma's triumphant expression began to falter. Or this one, I continued, finding another message. Dad talking to his golf buddy about college costs. Emma needs the financial support because she's not equipped to handle stress like Sarah is. Sarah's got grit, she'll figure it out. Emma would crumble. Stop, Emma whispered. One more, I said relentlessly. This is Dad talking to Mom's sister Carol about why he pays for everything. Emma's fragile. Always has been. She needs protecting. Sarah's tough, sometimes I think she's tougher than I am. She doesn't need me the way Emma does. I looked up at Emma, whose face had gone pale. Congratulations, Emma. You're right. Dad did choose you. He chose you because he thinks you're weak. He chose you because he thinks you're incapable. He chose you because he sees you as someone who will never be able to take care of herself. Mom covered her mouth with her hand, staring at Emma with something that looked like dawning horror. I'm the one he respects, I continued. I'm the one he trusts to handle adversity. I'm the one he believes will succeed no matter what obstacles get thrown at me. You? You're his charity case. Emma was shaking now, her earlier bravado completely gone. That's not, he doesn't think that about me. He absolutely thinks that about you. And the worst part? You've spent so much time playing helpless to get his money that you've actually become helpless. You don't know how to do anything for yourself because you've never had to. That's not true, Emma said, but her voice was small and uncertain. Isn't it? I stood up, looking down at her. When's the last time you solved a problem without Dad's money? When's the last time you faced a challenge without him swooping in to rescue you? You're 22 years old, and you still run to Daddy every time life gets slightly difficult. Mom finally found her voice. Both of you need to stop this. We're family. No, Mom. I turned to face her. Family doesn't work like this. Family doesn't sacrifice one child for another. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and play favorites. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. I'm done pretending this is normal. Where are you going? Mom asked frantically. To get some air before I say something I can't take back. I headed toward the door, then paused. Actually, you know what? I've changed my mind about Grandma's party. Emma looked up sharply. What do you mean? I smiled, and it felt dangerous. I mean, I think our entire family deserves to know exactly who Dad really is. And who you really are. I walked out onto the front porch, letting the cold air hit my face like a slap. My hands were shaking, not from the temperature, but from the adrenaline still coursing through my system. Behind me, I could hear muted voices through the door, Mom's frantic tone mixing with Emma's higher-pitched protests. My phone buzzed. A text from my roommate Jess. Hey girl, your dad called the dorm looking for you. Said it was urgent family stuff. Everything okay? I stared at the message, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Dad was already trying to control the narrative, probably calling anyone who might give me shelter. Classic move, cut off my escape routes before I could use them. Another buzz. This time it was my cousin Marcus. Uncle Tom just called my mom asking if I'd heard from you. Said you're going through a difficult phase and might reach out for money. Dude, what's going on? My stomach dropped. He was already poisoning the well, making sure that if I tried to tell anyone the truth, they'd dismiss it as the desperate lies of a troubled kid looking for handouts. How many people had he called in the last hour? The front door opened behind me, and I tensed, expecting Dad or Mom. Instead, Emma stepped out, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. Sarah, she said quietly. Can we talk? I think we've said enough for one night. Please. Her voice cracked. I need to explain. Explain what? That everything I just said in there is true? That you've been manipulating our parents for years while I've been breaking my back trying to make them proud? Emma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, less performative, more raw. Do you remember when we were kids, and I had that panic attack at the mall? I did remember. Emma had been maybe 8, and she'd completely melted down in the food court, hyperventilating and crying until Dad had to carry her out. It was the first time I'd seen our parents look truly scared. That was real, she continued. The fear, the feeling like I couldn't breathe. But afterward, when everyone was so gentle with me, so careful. I liked it. I liked being taken care of. She wiped her nose with her sleeve. I know that sounds awful. It sounds honest. Finally. I didn't plan for it to get this far, she said. It just escalated. Every time I was struggling with something, school, social stuff, whatever, playing up the anxiety made it easier. Made people help me instead of expecting me to figure it out myself. I turned to look at her. And you never thought about what that was costing me? Her face crumpled. I told myself you didn't need help. You were always so good at everything, so capable. I convinced myself that you preferred being independent. I was capable because I had to be, Emma. Because every time our parents had limited resources, time, money, attention, it all went to you. I know that now. She was crying again, but it looked different from her earlier performance. Uglier, more genuine. When I said that thing about Dad choosing me because I matter more, I didn't mean it. I was just trying to hurt you because I was angry and embarrassed. But you did mean it. Maybe not consciously, but part of you has always believed that. She didn't deny it, which somehow hurt worse than if she'd argued. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my work-study supervisor at the campus library. Sarah, your father called asking about your work schedule. Said there might be some family issues affecting your availability. Please call me tomorrow. I showed Emma the message. He's not stopping with family. He's calling my job now. Emma's eyes widened. He wouldn't try to get you fired. Wouldn't he? I was already scrolling through my contacts, wondering who else Dad might call. He gave me an ultimatum, remember? Accept the family dynamic or get out. This is him making sure I can't get out. Emma stared at my phone screen, her face going even paler. Sarah, I don't think Dad would actually call my job to sabotage me? Are you kidding? I was already dialing my supervisor back, but it went straight to voicemail. He's probably telling everyone I'm having some kind of breakdown. Making me sound unstable. Maybe he's just worried. Stop. I whirled on her. Stop making excuses for him. You heard those texts. This isn't about worry. This is about control. My phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. Don't answer it, Emma said quickly. Why not? Because Dad's standing right behind her telling her what to say. Emma wrapped her arms tighter around herself. That's how it always works. Dad decides on the strategy, then sends Mom to execute it because she seems less threatening. I stared at my sister, surprised by this moment of clarity. How long have you known he does that? Always. She looked ashamed. It's part of why the anxiety thing worked so well. Dad would coach Mom on how to handle my episodes, and she'd do whatever he suggested. Made me feel important, like I was worth strategizing over. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time it was Dad. He's going to offer you something, Emma said, recognizing the pattern. Some kind of deal to make this go away quietly. Against my better judgment, I answered. What? Sarah. Dad's voice was carefully controlled, the tone he used during his business calls. I think we got off on the wrong foot tonight. Did we? I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right. I haven't been fair to you. So here's what I'm going to do. He paused, probably expecting me to ask what. When I didn't, he continued. I'm prepared to pay off your student loans. All of them. Emma's eyes went wide. I felt my heart skip, then forced myself to focus. In exchange for what? We keep this conversation in the family. You don't mention any of this at your grandmother's party, and we all move forward with a clean slate. How much are my loans, Dad? Another pause. I'm sure we can work out the details. No. Tell me right now how much I owe in student loans. Silence stretched between us. Emma was shaking her head frantically, mouthing, he doesn't know. The important thing is that I'm willing to help. $47,000, I said. That's how much I owe. I've been tracking every penny because unlike some people in this family, I don't have the luxury of ignoring money problems. My voice was rising. You want to buy my silence without even knowing the price. That's how little attention you paid to my actual life. Sarah, let's not get bogged down in numbers. But you know exactly how much Emma's graduate program costs, don't you? You know her rent down to the penny. You probably know what she spends on groceries. That's different. It's different because she matters and I don't. I could feel tears building, but I pushed through. You're offering to pay my loans like it's some generous gift, but you've been paying Emma's bills for years without her even asking. Your sister has special circumstances. My sister has been manipulating you, and you've been letting her because it's easier than actually parenting. I looked at Emma, who was staring at the ground. And now you're trying to manipulate me with money because it's the only language you speak. I'm trying to fix this situation. You're trying to control it. There's a difference. I hung up and immediately turned my phone off. Emma was looking at me with something that might have been admiration. You just turned down having all your debt erased. Yeah, well. I wiped my eyes with my sleeve. Apparently, I really am tougher than you thought. Emma and I stood in silence for a moment, our breath visible in the cold air. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. I'll back you up. I turned to stare at her. What? At Grandma's party. I'll tell them the truth too. Her voice was shaky but determined. About the anxiety thing, about the money, all of it. Emma, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She was crying again, but she looked more resolute than I'd ever seen her. This is my mess too. Maybe mostly my mess. And if Dad's already trying to sabotage your job. She trailed off, then pulled out her own phone. Oh God. What? She showed me her screen. 3 missed calls from Dad, and a text, need to discuss your funding situation. Call immediately. My stomach dropped. He's threatening to cut you off. He's never done that before, Emma whispered, staring at her phone like it was a snake. Even when I failed that statistics class twice, or when I changed majors and had to take an extra year, he always just fixed it. Well, congratulations. Now you know what it feels like to be me. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Emma looked like I'd slapped her. I'm sorry, I said quickly. That was... No, it was accurate. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another text from Dad, your rent is due next week. We should talk before then. Jesus, I breathed. He really is threatening you. Emma was scrolling through her phone with growing panic. Sarah, I don't know how to live without his help. I've never had a real job, I don't know how to budget, I can't even do my own taxes. What if he actually cuts me off? Part of me wanted to say figure it out like the rest of us, but looking at my sister's genuine terror, I felt something unexpected, pity. She wasn't lying or performing right now. She was legitimately scared. Maybe that's not the worst thing, I said gently. Easy for you to say. You know how to take care of yourself. Because I had to learn. You can learn too. Emma's phone rang. Dad again. She stared at it, paralyzed. Don't answer, I said. But what if? Emma. I grabbed her shoulders. Look at me. What's the worst thing that happens if you don't answer right now? He gets angrier? He's already angry. What else? He cuts off my money? And? Emma's face scrunched up like she was trying to solve an impossible math problem. And? I'd have to figure something else out? Right. And you could figure something else out. You're not helpless, Emma. You just haven't had to prove it yet. The phone stopped ringing. Immediately, mine started buzzing even though it was turned off, the vibration against my leg. Someone was calling the landline inside. He's not giving up, Emma said. Good. Let him show his whole ass. The more desperate he gets, the more obvious it becomes that this was never about protecting you or helping the family. This is about him maintaining control. Through the living room window, I could see Mom pacing with the cordless phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. Dad was probably giving her a script for the next attempt. Sarah, Emma said quietly. What if we both lose everything? What if he disowns us both? I thought about my empty bank account, my maxed out credit cards, my car that needed repairs I couldn't afford. Then I thought about eating ramen for dinner while Emma posted pictures of her expensive brunches. Then at least we'll lose it together, I said. And honestly? I don't think I ever really had anything to lose in the first place. Emma nodded slowly, like she was beginning to understand something fundamental about how our family actually worked. Her phone buzzed with a new text. This time, it wasn't from Dad. It was from our cousin Jessica. Hey, your dad just called asking weird questions about your stability. What's going on? He's calling everyone, Emma whispered. The war had officially begun. We stared at Emma's phone as more texts started flooding in. Cousin Mike, your dad says you're having some kind of breakdown? Aunt Linda, honey, call me. Your father is worried sick. Uncle Rob, what's this about you needing an intervention? Oh my God, Emma breathed, scrolling through message after message. He's telling everyone I'm having a mental health crisis. My phone buzzed against my leg again. When I turned it back on, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen texts from various family members. The most recent was from Grandma herself. Sweetheart, your father says you're trying to hurt Emma. This doesn't sound like you. Please call me. He's fucking brilliant, I said, feeling sick. He's getting ahead of the story. Emma's hands were shaking as she read another message. Aunt Carol wants to know if she should call a wellness check on me. Dad told her I might be unsafe. And let me guess, I'm the dangerous influence trying to manipulate my fragile sister. Through the window, I could see Mom still on the phone, probably fielding calls from concerned relatives. She kept glancing toward the back door like she was afraid we might run away. This is insane, Emma said. He's making it sound like you're holding me hostage or something. My phone rang. Grandma's name on the screen. I have to answer this, I said. If I don't, it just confirms his story. Sarah, darling. Grandma's voice was strained. What on earth is happening? Your father called me in tears saying Emma's having some kind of episode and you're making it worse. Grandma, He says you've been filling her head with paranoid ideas about money, that you're trying to turn her against the family. Is that true? I closed my eyes. Dad had played this perfectly. Make Emma the victim, make me the villain, and wrap it all in concern for family unity. It's not paranoid if it's true. What do you mean? I mean Dad has been lying to all of us for years. About money, about fairness, about... Sarah. Grandma's voice was sharp. Your father is beside himself with worry. He says Emma's been crying for hours because you've convinced her that her own family doesn't love her. How could you do such a thing? The unfairness of it hit me like a physical blow. Did he mention that he's been secretly paying all of Emma's expenses while telling me we're too broke to help with my tuition? Honey, every parent makes different choices about how to support their children. That doesn't mean... Different choices? My voice cracked. Grandma, I've been sleeping in my car between jobs while Emma lives in a luxury apartment that Dad pays for. Is that really just a different choice? Silence. Then, I'm sure there are circumstances I don't understand. There are. But not the ones you think. Emma was watching me with wide eyes, probably hearing echoes of every conversation she'd had with family members over the years. The automatic assumption that Dad's version was the truth, that questioning him was somehow disloyal. Your father wants to have a family meeting, Grandma continued. All of us together, so we can work this out properly. Let me guess, at your birthday party? With everyone watching? Before then. This weekend. He's very concerned about Emma's state of mind. I looked at Emma, who was scrolling through more messages with growing horror. He's telling everyone I'm suicidal, she whispered. Look at this. She showed me a text from our cousin Amy. Emma, please don't do anything drastic. Whatever's happening, we can fix it. Your dad loves you so much. Jesus Christ, I breathed. Sarah? Grandma was still waiting. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Emma was staring at her phone like it was radioactive. He's not just trying to control the narrative. He's trying to have me committed. The game had just changed completely. The next morning, I woke up on Emma's couch to find her standing in her kitchen, fully dressed at 6 a.m., clutching a coffee mug like a lifeline. I couldn't sleep, she said without turning around. I keep thinking about what Grandma said. About the family meeting. I sat up, my back aching from the uncomfortable couch. You're not seriously considering it. What if I don't show up and he really does try to have me hospitalized? He's already got half the family convinced I'm unstable. My phone had been buzzing all night. I'd finally turned it off completely, but the silence felt ominous now. Emma, you can't negotiate with someone who's rewriting reality. But what if he's right about some of it? Emma's voice was small. What if I am too dependent? What if I really can't function without him? That's exactly what he wants you to think. Emma's phone rang. She glanced at it and her face went white. It's Dr. Matthews. Who's Dr. Matthews? My therapist. The one Dad pays for. She stared at the ringing phone. He's never called me before. We only do appointments. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Don't answer it. But Emma was already swiping to accept. Hello? I could hear the man's voice through the phone, professional but concerned. Emma's responses were mostly yes and no and I understand. Her face grew paler with each exchange. Okay, she said finally. I'll think about it. Thank you for calling. She hung up and immediately sat down hard on one of her kitchen chairs. What did he say? He got a call from Dad this morning. Dad told him I was having a severe episode, possibly a break from reality, and that I might be a danger to myself or others. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. He wants me to come in for an emergency session today. Jesus. He said Dad was very concerned because I've been making paranoid accusations about financial abuse and that I've been influenced by someone with a vendetta against the family. Emma looked at me. That's you. My hands were shaking. This is insane. He's trying to gaslight you through your own therapist. Dr. Matthews has been seeing me for 3 years. He knows about my anxiety, my panic attacks, my problems with decision-making. If Dad tells him I'm delusional. You're not delusional. But I look delusional, don't I? Crying about bank statements, claiming my father is manipulating me, refusing to answer his calls. Emma's breathing was getting faster. What if Dr. Matthews agrees with him? What if he thinks I need to be hospitalized? I could see her spiraling, and worse, I could see Dad's strategy working perfectly. Isolate Emma from support, make her question her own perceptions, then use her existing mental health struggles as evidence that she couldn't trust her own judgment. We need proof, I said suddenly. Something he can't explain away or twist. What kind of proof? I was already moving toward my laptop. Bank records are just numbers. But communications, messages where he explicitly talks about the arrangement. Sarah, I don't have anything like that. He never puts this stuff in writing. But someone does. I was thinking out loud now. Your landlord. Your school's financial aid office. The car dealership where he bought your car. Emma was watching me with growing hope. You think they'd have records? I think your dad is careful, but he's not perfect. And I think he never expected anyone to actually investigate. My phone, still turned off, felt like a time bomb in my pocket. Eventually I'd have to face the avalanche of messages, the concerned calls, the family members who'd already been convinced I was the problem. But first, we needed ammunition that even Dad couldn't spin into a story about Emma's fragile mental state. Get dressed, I told Emma. We're going to prove you're not crazy. The financial aid office at Emma's graduate school was our first stop. Emma's hands were trembling as she signed the records request form, but her voice stayed steady when she explained to the administrator that she needed documentation of her payment history. I can pull up your account right now, the woman said, typing into her computer. Let's see, interesting. Your account shows a corporate sponsor arrangement. Emma and I exchanged glances. Corporate sponsor? Yes, Davidson Financial Consulting has been listed as covering all tuition and fees under an educational support contract. Very generous program they have. Dad's company. In writing. With a paper trail. 2 hours later, we had copies of everything, the corporate sponsorship agreement Dad had signed, the monthly payment schedules, even the luxury apartment lease with his company listed as the guarantor. Every document painted a picture of deliberate, systematic financial support that went far beyond what any struggling family could afford. This isn't a man making tough choices, I said, spreading the papers across Emma's kitchen table. This is someone who created an entire financial structure to support you while lying to everyone else about it. Emma was staring at the corporate sponsorship agreement. He told Dr. Matthews I was delusional about financial abuse. But look at this clause. If I withdraw from school or become non-compliant with family expectations, the funding stops immediately. Non-compliant with family expectations, I read aloud. Jesus, Emma. That's not support, that's control with a contract. My phone had been buzzing insistently. Finally, I turned it back on to find 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The most recent was from Dad. Sarah, enough. You're destroying this family. Come home now or I'm calling the police about Emma's welfare. He's escalating, I showed Emma the message. Let him, Emma said, and something in her voice had changed. The trembling was gone. I'm done being afraid of him. She picked up her phone and, for the first time in days, called Dad directly. Hi, Dad, she said when he answered. I could hear his voice through the speaker, urgent and concerned. Emma, sweetheart, thank God. Are you okay? Sarah hasn't been. I'm fine, Dad. Better than fine, actually. I wanted to thank you. Silence. Then, thank me? For the corporate sponsorship agreement. And the luxury apartment lease. And all the documentation of exactly how much you've been spending on my anxiety support while telling Sarah the family was broke. The silence stretched longer this time. Emma, you're not understanding the full picture. I understand it perfectly. I also understand that threatening to have your daughter committed because she discovered your lies isn't normal parental behavior. Nobody threatened. Dr. Matthews recorded our call, Dad. It's standard practice for emergency consultations. Would you like me to play back the part where you described Sarah as dangerous and me as possibly psychotic? I stared at Emma in amazement. This was the same person who'd been crying over bank statements 3 days ago. We'll be at Grandma's party, Emma continued. And we'll be bringing documentation. Not accusations, not emotional outbursts, just facts. Let the family decide what they think about your choices. She hung up before he could respond. Emma, I said. That was overdue. She looked at me with clear eyes. I spent so many years thinking I was fragile, that I needed protection from the world. Turns out I just needed protection from him. The party was still 2 weeks away, but the real confrontation was over. Dad could spin stories and manufacture crises, but he couldn't argue with his own signature on corporate contracts. For the first time in my life, the truth felt more powerful than his lies.